In this chapter we will talk about functional interfaces. In the previous videos we talked about that we may refer to a function without referring an object instance or a class. This is the property of functional programming. So, how Java supplies this feature in the language? It supplies us with functional interfaces. So, single abstract method interface is an interface that includes only one function or method inside it. The most known are runnable interface with run method. As you know, the most important method is run method inside runnable, and the only method inside the comparable interface is the compare method, so that any caller knows that the compare method is the name of the method inside the comparable interface that does the real processing. This method is documented somewhere else inside a Java documentation file, and the developer knows that he or she should invoke the compare method. This is also valid for functional interfaces. We have some new interfaces coming with Java 8, such as predicate, supplier, and consumer, and we have some old interfaces, but they were not used widely. They are function. All of these interfaces, function, be function, predicate, supplier, and consumer, they are all used for different purposes, but their common property is that they only have one method inside the interface, so that everyone knows that what to invoke when they use this interface. Let's talk about them. Our first functional interface is function. With this interface, we may write a processing unit, a function that gets only one single object as input and outputs only one single object. You may ask this, what can I do if I want to supply more than one argument to the function? You may use be function for two arguments. If you need to supply more than one argument, you need to write your own interface. But our topic now is to create a function that gets only one object as an input and outputs only one single object. Okay? Our goal for using this function interface is applying a logic to only one object. And with this interface, we may chain the logics. We may invoke the first function, then the second function, then the third function on one single object. If you need two arguments, two input arguments, you need to use be function. This again gets two objects as argument and outputs only one single object. The goal is the same. It is used for referencing to a function, to a processing unit, and we may again chain the functions by using be function references. The other functional interface is predicate. This functional interface's only method gets one single object and returns a boolean. So we use this predicate interface to test if a value conforms to a logic that you implemented inside the only function of predicate interface. We'll talk about the details. The other functional interface is consumer. As its name implies, this interface gets only one single object and consumes it and returns nothing. Okay? We use this to output some side effect, such as writing the values of the single object, the input object, to a file or to a console. Okay? We use consumer for this. And the other interface is supplier. Again, it's name implies that it supplies some object, so you get no input but you supply an object. We use supplier interface to create an object. For instance, if you create an object with new keyword inside the single function inside the supplier interface, you may create an object of desired type, so that means you supplied some object. In the next video, we will talk about function interface.